Okay, hello everybody. I hope you can understand my accent, just a little bit of a Scottish accent there. Um, Today I'm going to talk about the basic principles of PR, and I'll try to focus on non-profits, but the principles are the same across the board. I'm going to focus a bit on press release writing and how to use online distribution and tracking. And as Ben was saying, if you've got any questions, please use the chat feature. And if you've got anything specific, a specific PR issue that you're facing, please ask and I'll try to answer it. So this is just a quick intro to me. I've been working in the media for over 30 years, maybe even longer. And these are just some of the publications I've worked for in Australia. So I started on the Australian Women's Weekly with Ita Buttrose, and then right through to the Australian, where I was a technology writer. And when I first went into PR in around about 1988, when my first son was born, we relied on journalists to tell our stories. Mainstream and trade media were our only outlets. There was no online. We couldn't use email. We used fax and snail mail. And we had to physically clip stories from newspapers just to show that we'd been successful. So we didn't know how many people had read our press releases. These tools, they just didn't exist. So one of the most fundamental changes that have happened, I'm sure you're all aware, is that how we access content. And people are, still reading newspapers and watching TV, but it's not the ritual, the family ritual it used to be. There are a lot fewer reporters and more online exchange of information and, well, misinformation as well. That means that the role of PR has changed, and the job of PR has become more than ever before to influence your audience. And for you, that means that it's now your role to provide information in a way that engages your audience. It doesn't really matter whether they're reading or watching or listening to your content, whether that's online or in a newspaper or on TV or radio. So with that's background, it's really no wonder that I love the internet. This is the service that I run, Newsmaker. We have over 8,000 members, and approximately 25% of those are non-profits. We send out 200 to 300 press releases a week, and this is the kind of technology that you have at your fingertips today that it makes it easy to deliver content instantly. And I also wanted to show you another service that is just so, if you're not already using the service, I encourage you to sign up. This is SourceBottle, sourcebottle.com.au. In this service, journalists and bloggers actually publish the stories that they are working on and ask for you to respond to them. So if you sign up for SourceBottle alerts, you'll receive these every day in your inbox. And you'll be able to, if you've got a story that fits what the journalist is looking for, you'll be able to respond directly. That's run by the lovely Beck Derrington. I don't know if you have heard of her. So that was a little, just some of the technologies. Now, the online press release is still a very powerful tool. Press releases never really went out of fashion. So when you send a press release out online, and I should mention here that even if you use a service like SourceBottle, you're still going to have to prepare the content. And whether you call that a press release or a pitch, it doesn't really matter. You still need to write down the key points because it's going to help you such a lot when you eventually get that interview. So when you send a press release out online, you can reach all your audiences in one hit. If it's a good story, you can reach journalists, new members, board members, stakeholders. You can become part of the Google News network, which means that if you send out a story in a press release service that is accredited by Google News, the keywords, everyone who's signed up for a keyword in your press release will receive that in their inbox. So you extend the audience of people receiving your press release right out into a world of people that you haven't even met. You can, of course, reach bloggers and create a lot of leverage in social media. And one of the things that I always mention to people is that these days when you get coverage in the media, that's not enough. You need to take that coverage and share it in every known network. In other words, tell everyone about it. And that's how you create the ripple effect. Now this is a bunch of dot points that really spell how to get media interested. The last dot point actually should be the first one. It's make the journalist care. When they receive a press release in their inbox, in the subject line, there has to be something that makes the journalist say, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll take a closer look. And there are always, it's very difficult to be specific, as I don't know what all of your organizations are, but if you've got something, an innovative twist on something, or a pure innovation, a world first, it is much more likely to get coverage. But you first have to get the journalists to appreciate it, that it is an innovation, and you have to start with your subject line in your email to tell them that. Another very tried and true way to get media coverage is to use news that is happening at the moment. I mean, at the moment we're in a reasonably slow news phase because we've come out of a federal election. Before the election would have been a good time to talk about all the issues concerning you, and some of you may have sent out press releases at that time because that was a time when politicians were listening. Now there's more of a, you could be talking about the impact, for instance, of the first 100 days of government. That would be something associated with the current news. We're not up to quite, are we up to 100 days yet? Doesn't really matter. But that's the sort of thing where you can make news from current news. The other thing is big numbers, any large numbers. How many people do you impact? The more people you impact, the more likely it is that journalists will run your story. Using your champions, I'm sure you very much appreciate having what it's like to have a celebrity endorsement or champion. And you have to use those people to the hilt. And if you are related to or friends with someone who becomes a celebrity, unfortunately, you need to be able to ask them for help, and that makes a massive difference too. Human interest, I mean, almost all media is in fact about human interest, as you would know if you ever watch 60 Minutes or Sunday Night. And it's rarely just about information. It's all about the impact that you have on other people. So I hope that gives you some ideas of why the media might be interested in your story and why they would read your press release or pitch when it arrives in their inbox. And here's another list of things you can think about if you don't feel that you have actual news to tell. Entering awards or being a sponsor of awards often does, especially if you get into the finals of the awards. Or I always also say that you're best to put your press release out when you reach the finals of an award scheme, because if you lose, no one's going to be interested. It's quite surprising how many times, for instance, the Telstra Businesswomen's Awards, they'll run the stories about the finalists in advance. Developing champions, we spoke a little bit about that a minute ago. Now, if you're attending a conference, often the conference organizers will assist you to get your press release out there, coverage for their conference as well. So that is, don't leave it till the week before the conference. Do it months in advance. So, say 12 weeks in advance, prepare a press release. If you're going to be announcing some news at the conference organizer or sponsor will be very pleased to hear about it. And they will likely put your press release out for you as well. The responding to commentary in the press, I'm sure that you do some of that as well, but if there is anything in your area of knowledge which has become news, you should respond to it, and hopefully respond to it in an editorial way that goes beyond the editor's letter. Not that there's anything wrong with editor's letters. If you do research, so if you do surveys using SurveyMonkey or anything like this, media just loves surveys. You probably read every single day in your newspaper something about Swedish researchers say this or that, you know, something that we all know already, but it is just extraordinary how much interest there is in the results of surveys. And if you've got something that would be of general interest, it's well worth your while.
Layla.
The other thing, of course, the holy grail of, yes.
We just have a question about champions. What's the best way to find champions or develop people into champions for you?
Right, to develop a champion. Yeah, it's very tricky. If you don't know the person personally, it can be. I mean, you have to send your most charismatic people out there to talk to the champion. The thing is, before you even talk to a champion, you should make sure that they are aligned philosophically. You know, their values are aligned with your organization. That's massively important. You don't want them to suddenly be caught drink driving just after they become your champion. But you can't control everything in life, of course. So that's one thing. But so identifying a champion, or say a short list of people who could be champions for your organization and that you feel that their values are aligned with your values. And then trying to find someone who knows them is the best way in, but also sending a letter that explains what would be in it for them, in the sense of there may be no money in it for them, but it could be something that they really deeply care about, and you know, it may have had, the organization that you work for may have some impact on someone they know, and identifying those things. So the way you find out about people, of course, is through LinkedIn, through Facebook to some degree, through Twitter, you know, through the media in general. And as I said, you know, we're all 6 degrees of separation these days, if not less. So it should be possible to find someone who knows that champion. Is that enough information? Is there anything else that I can add?
No, that's great. Thanks.
Hello. That's fine. Yep. So the last point on this slide was about becoming a subject expert, and that is where you, when you start approaching media, they don't know you. You have to keep media informed. So you start at the beginning, you tell them what your organization is about. So going blasting into media with a news story about an organization that they've never heard about is going to be very, very difficult. So pave the way by having early press releases about, I mean, you know, most of you would have been around for a while, but say there was a foundation press release or something where you appointed a new board, let the media know about it. And then when you start quoting that board, it will mean something more to them. So, and then when you keep media informed, they will start to talk to you. It takes about 6 press releases or 6 months, let's say, for media to understand who you are and what you may be able to offer them. And you know, take every speaking engagement you can get, needless to say. And if you've got a lot of knowledge, you can propose a column and become, you know, the expert in your field, the non-expert in your field. Again, blogs are a fantastic tool, but you have to make sure people are reading them, and media can be a way to shortcut that, to get a good column in media and direct people to your blog from that is a good idea. Now this point is all about trust, and it relates to what I just said. It's a case of, if you deliver substantial stories to the media on a regular basis, they are going to trust that you can deliver, and they will phone you and ask you if you know anyone who could be photographed, who could be, you know, any members that might be able to comment on, or your chair or anything like that, who might be able to comment on a story. And that's what happens when you demonstrate that you're good media talent. So I'll give you for instance, if you go on radio to respond to a press release you might have sent out, you should be prepared for that radio interview. And that means doing some media training. And that doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just have somebody, one of your people, ask you questions and force you to answer it without referring to notes, for instance. And don't just ask yourself or have yourself ask the easy questions. Ask the difficult questions too, and work through how you're going to handle difficult questions, so that when that interview comes, you give journalists the goods. The other thing is with pictures, journalists will often ask for a picture, so you should be prepared to give a picture if you don't already have one. A picture can speak volumes, and I just have to tell you that this morning when I opened the Adelaide Advertiser, I had a very good picture for a client. So it was on the front page of the Advertiser. It was a full page in the SA Business Journal. Some of you won't know this, but you can imagine it's a Metro Daily, and it's the full page with a picture. And then inside there was a picture story, beautiful picture, and then on the I can't remember what you call them now, on the banners on the street outside newsagents, that story has been used again, just on the strength of having a fantastic picture. So it's worth thinking about, how do you tell your story in a picture that could be used in an editorial way, not as an advertisement. And that typically means that the picture has to tell the story of your organization and how it impacts on human beings. Now here we go down to what you might call the more boring stuff, but the press release template itself and how you approach writing a press release. It's a very good idea when you've written your press release, and I've said here to write your headline later. You should also write your dot points and summary later too, but you need to approach the press release with the idea that you need 3 very clear points, and 3 is the maximum. Nobody's going to be able to take in more than 3 clear points about your story. So when you're pitching your story, say you're pitching a story to a journalist on the phone, those 3 points should be in front of you and you can just read them. You'll be nicely prepared. So the other thing is that journalists themselves, in many newspapers now, a story will be accompanied by the key points, and that will jump out at you as soon as you look at the page. So this is these are important things. You can't really teach somebody to write a press release in that you have to practice and read good press releases, find press release sites and just read how people are approaching press releases. The first paragraph, the subject line I've mentioned, subject line is often the same as the headline anyway. Those are the most important items, followed by the first paragraph. And it's very rare for a journalist to read past that first paragraph unless you have already hooked them in. So in this case, the other important thing about press releases is you don't write about I and we and our outside quotation marks. They should be written as if someone else was writing about your organization, that is in an editorial way. So this one is about the longest table. Don't know if you've heard about this upcoming event. So Australia's first virtually connected fundraising dinner, The Longest Table, United We Dine, is being launched this Wednesday at the Adelaide Convention Centre, which basically tells you the who, what, where, when. Perhaps a little bit of the why as well about this event. It's very direct and to the point. It's not trying to be fancy, just telling them this is what the story is and when. The second paragraph is often just some additional impact. So what is this event? And in this case, who were the organizations involved? Now by this time the journalist is either on their beat, they know they want to run it, or they don't. So they may just stop reading there, or they may continue on. Then this is a standard practice I've been using for years, to have the third paragraph be where you introduce your spokesperson, and I do that because it works. So you've told them what the main story is. Now you're giving the human element and what it's about, and it has to be written in a way that is natural language. So actually interviewing your CEO and writing down what they actually say is one of the best ways to get natural language. You don't want your press release to read like a brochure. Now the remaining detail to tie up the press release, you'll have noticed that this is very short. You really want to keep your press release short. Around about 400 words is generally enough. And if you want to add, you can add links to other information, or in some cases you can add a PDF with a media backgrounder, or just tell the journalists that a media backgrounder is available. This is important, and it's quite surprising how easy it is to forget when you're concentrating on getting your copy right. But make sure that the journalist has exactly the contact details you want, and I'll give you a little bit more information about that later. When you're talking about an event, you should just list it, what, where, when, and then any talent available that they might, anybody of celebrities. So if you've invited the Premier along, or if there's going to be anyone well known in your community attending, you should let them know. And if there are any photo opportunities, again, if something active is going to be happening on the day, you should let them know as well, especially if things like if there are going to be animals present or anything like that. This is going back to the headline. Headline writing is very an acquired skill, and it needs to be punchy, and usually around 10 words is the maximum. It depends how much, it depends what you really have to say. I advocate removing all articles, these and as and ands. You'll rarely find an article in a newspaper or magazine headline. And table is set for new era and virtual fundraising actually was written as the table is set for a new era in virtual fundraising, which does slow it down slightly. Again, for me to write a headline, I would always have to read the press release and then really think about what is the key point that is going to attract the attention of a journalist or a reader in social media, for that matter. And I think we're all a lot more practiced in writing headlines because of social media, because everything has to be so shortened. So it's surprising what will and what won't attract attention. Sometimes a very formative headline that's not clever will attract more attention than something that is trying to be clever. At the end of your press release, because the media organization, you should include some kind of file what organization stands for, and it's some option to do this. But if you've won awards, or you've got something specific in your history that's good for them to know, if you're including any partners or third parties in a press release, you need to have their permission. It's probably one of those areas where it's better to ask permission first rather than apologize later. And again, the media contact details. When we talk about media contact details, we're talking about the contact person that might be a middle person. It could be a PR person or someone in-house. It doesn't have to be the person who is the spokesperson. Sometimes it's better to have the media contact your PR person or someone in the organization, marketing person in the organization, to talk to them about what they want from the spokesperson. It's an important distinction because it allows you to take notes about what areas the journalist is going to focus on, and then you can chat to your spokesperson about it, discuss how you're going to respond before getting back to the journalist. Something that journalists do is they'll just call up and start talking in a conversational way with you, and before you know it, you're being interviewed, and all of that is quotable. So it's important to know to delineate that to the journalist and to be able to say, I can't talk about that, I need to refer you to the spokesperson.
Layla?
Images, generally, yes?
Just a question.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Just a question on the best way to contact journalists. So you mentioned phone and email. Is it best just to go to their website and contact them directly, or is it better to get an introduction or try LinkedIn, or what do you think works well?
I think that, I mean, nowadays we try everything, and it depends. Every journalist has a different, you know, a different feeling of whether or not their privacy is being infringed. But so generally speaking, I'd start with the website, and if, for instance, the Courier Mail, if you're in Queensland, publishes all the journalists' names and their contact details, email addresses and phone numbers right on the page, so you have to assume that they are perfectly happy for you to contact that journalist, and I would say yeah, do. I usually, even though well, you know, you get so many different opinions, it's each journalist will be different, but I think an email pitch is best to start with, and then say in the email pitch, I'll contact you soon to find out if this is of interest, or something along those lines. Then call. If you have to call through the switchboard, that's okay, just get put through to the journalist. But what I would say is, if you get through and you go through to a message bank, don't leave a message. Because if you leave a message, you cannot call that journalist back again, because that's harassment. So the idea is an email pitch, so they're aware of you. Call them up. If you get through, that's fantastic. You just say, I've just sent you this pitch. But don't just say, I just wanted to check if you got it. Actually have another piece of information that they don't have in front of them. So say, well, since I sent that, this situation has developed, or we actually found something else that I thought would make a great photograph, or some other piece of information, because it is deadly for as soon as journalists hear, I just want to know if you got the press release, it can put some of their hackles up, even though we all know that often they won't even have looked at the press release unless you do call. So that's happened to me more times than I could possibly count, that I've called up and said, and started a conversation, and they've said, oh, I think I saw that, or I haven't seen it, or oh, here it is now, and before you know it, you've got media coverage that you would not have got if you didn't call the journalist up. So the answer to that is yes, phone and make contact. In terms of getting to know the journalist, the first step in that is, what media outlets do you want to be in, identifying the top 5, and then find the contact details, find the right person, and call up. And it can take quite a long time to find the right person. You can bounce from one to the other before you find the right person. And that's basically, that is what the job of PR is. So other ways, of course, and this is another really good one, is that if you've got a conference coming up and there's going to be several good speakers, call the journalists that you have in mind, and hopefully if you're in the same town, ask them out for a coffee. If you think you've got something really substantial, ask them out for lunch. Take a folder with you that has the outlines of what you think the stories are. So the speakers, why it's important to the community. You can, of course, do that. It doesn't have to be a conference. You can do that for any important story. I'd suggest that you wouldn't do that. You can do it just to have a coffee, but the journalist is on limited time as well, so it's probably better if you have something to talk about. The other tactic is to tell the journalist about a good story even when it isn't about you. So even if it isn't about your organization, if it's about a third party and say that this news came up, that's another way to build trust with journalists. Is that
Yep, that's great, thanks.
What you were after? Yep, good. Adding images, I'm getting a bit of an echo now. Adding images is important. Just add thumbnails. It is good to let journalists know if you've got a good image, but you can either do it in writing, as I've done here on this slide, where you can give them the captions. They'll know what the content of the image is, and any links to videos or podcasts and so on. I'm not sure how often videos are being used as a source. I have actually done a very large survey of Australian journalists that I'm about to publish, and they didn't actually mention video as being an important source. Press releases were an important source, and direct contact. They were the two most important sources. Social media, they use social media, but they don't trust it factually, which is probably a good thing. Without being funny, it's just. But they are. I was surprised at how some journalists are not using social media as much as they probably should. On the other hand, now just move on. Going to give you a quick demo. Just wanted to go back. This is just a typical example of a press release on a page with from the National Electrical and Communications Association. So you can see there's a contact profile, and it's a stock standard press release. But if you want to look at the way press releases are written, you could look on Newsmaker and Fossick around. You'll see a lot of professionally written press releases there. I mentioned the fact that when a press release, sorry about that, that when a press release goes out, it can go straight into Google News, and it usually does that within a few minutes. So your press release is going out via that system, and a summary is sent to people who have requested Google Alerts. And I'll just get on.
Just while you're switching over, Layla, we had a question about measuring your impact. So how do you measure how successful your press release is? Like, would you go on average views or something like that, especially when it comes to print media?
Oh, funny. When it goes to print media, okay, well that's well, funny you should ask that. This is I was about to bring up this report on a press release that went out from a non-profit. So how do you measure success? Unless you offline media monitoring of print media is quite expensive, and it's great if you can afford it. That's fine. Online media monitoring is you can use different services. There's TrackYour, TRACKUR.com, which has a freemium model. Well, I'm not really sure about in Australia, but certainly Newsmaker offers reporting on the page and on social media mentions. So you can tell this one here showing you on a map where people had read the press release, and then how many people had on the day of release, which was 132 visits there, if you can see that. And then you can see that you're still getting visits to your press release even a few weeks later. Just click on there. You can download a report as a CSV file, Excel, or as an image file. You can see things like whether there was the referral to that press release, whether it was from another website or a search engine or direct entry, what browsers were being used, and of course you'll be able to tell that these days that mobile is being used more than ever before to access press releases. So it's about about 40% on mobile, and so there's quite a bit of data that you can collect about. So in this case, Facebook referred a large number, 66% of visits, and I suppose that's of social media. So yeah, but so you can tell that kind of information. The other way is to have a Google News alert yourself set up for the keywords being probably your organization name, and then you'll receive any online coverage will arrive in your inbox as a Google alert. It's one of the nicest ways and cheapest ways to do online media monitoring. Did you need any more information about that?
No, that was really good. Thanks, Layla.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. So basically, I was just going to show you the something about media lists, because that's an area that people often ask about. So I'm quickly going in, and I don't want to be boring you by showing you the whole system, I'm just going to quickly create a media list so that you can see what's possible. So when you're creating a media list, and this could be in any service that that offers media lists, so I'm not sure how they all work, but so say you were going, we have a non-profit category, but often I find for non-profits, they really want to get out into general news. So I'm just clicking on general news. Then if you're in the regions, definitely regional press. And then we also have each state, so media for each state, so that if you've got something that is about Queensland, don't send to WA. They're not going to be interested. But you could click, say, Queensland only, and then talkback and talk shows is one of the most popular categories for non-profits, and that is where you can get onto your local radio stations, and if you're, obviously it's a lot harder to get onto TV talk show, but we have had quite a lot of success on Today Tonight and A Current Affair. Then there are lifestyle categories, so if it is, for instance, families and parenting, or women's interest, women's lifestyle bloggers, and so on. Very, very dependent on what your press release is about. So I'll just save those categories. I probably saved too many. And then you can check the media types, being a media type being magazines or metro dailies, TV, radio, and so on. And then when you save that, you'll be able to see the so you'll be able to see the media outlets as a list, and then you can go through and untick anything that you think would not be suitable for your release. So you can see that you've got access to a large range of media, and if nothing else, even having checkout, it's okay if you don't check out Newsmaker, but if you do, you'll be able to see what's possible, and there's no payment until you actually send out a press release. And I'm also offering you as part of Giving Tuesday for all nonprofits a 50% discount on our services, which are already quite low cost. My point is that you'll be able to see what publications are available for you, and then you can go off to those websites and check them out yourself. Check out, as I say, the top 5 or top 10, and go out and do those, contact those publications directly, which will be by far the easiest way to have a successful media campaign. Now, I'm going all the details there. I'll just go back to the PowerPoint quickly, and yep, don't pester journalists means the same as I was saying before. Is that if you send out a press release, don't leave a message, because then you will be pestering them if you call back. And if they don't like the story, it's extremely difficult to persuade them to like it. So you're best to move on to the next story, or the next journalist on a different media outlet, or at least in a different section of the media outlet. Gimmicks can be quite difficult. A local organisation in South Australia fell foul of that. They sent, they were encouraging people to come to Adelaide to be a big fish in a small pond. So they sent out live goldfish in goldfish bowls to media in Sydney. Unfortunately, many of the goldfish were dead on arrival, and they were photographed and posted widely on social media. So that backfired. So we suggest that you don't send live animals anywhere. And the other point is one press release is never enough. If you want to be influential, a series of press releases, pitches, announcements, whatever you want to call them, going out regularly into search engines, into social media, into media itself, it's all going to build your profile. And then, as I said before, then people will come calling, asking you for your opinion. And just a last little point, this is written by a friend of mine, Brian Johnson, but that's not why I'm promoting it. It's an excellent reader for about PR, and it's jam-packed with really useful information. So if you want to go to www.prwisdom.info, you'll find that it's very, very focused on Australian media. So yeah, well worth the read. And that was that. So I'll be really happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much for that, Layla. That was fantastic. We did have a question about what's the difference between writing, say, a media release and then offering like a blogger or a journalist like a feature article? Like, would you write a whole article, or would you just do the media release and then offer to do something else after that?
Now that's a good question. I think that if I was proposing a feature article, I would talk to the journalist first before you go too far down the track. I would do an outline of the article and then suggest it. But certainly feature articles, opinion pieces are very, very good, and definitely. Then the other thing, of course, that you can do is you can write a press release about the feature article as well. Just remember that there's press releases you send out to journalists, and there are press releases that you have online to send people to your content on your website, and that's where that would fall in. You would actually say that you know, our CEO has written this interesting piece, and this is why he wrote it, and then send them back to your website to read more about it. So the answer to that is, I wouldn't go down too far down the track of writing a full feature article, because it takes a long time, before you were sure the journalist wanted it. And also it has to be written in a style that's suited to the publication. So if you're very familiar with the publication, that's fine, it's not a problem. But if you're not, you may have to become familiar with it. And the outline approach is good.
Right.
Much the same as writing the dot points about the press release.
Yeah, thanks for that. Also, just a question on Newsmaker. Does that cover, so you've got everything from TV to paper as well? It's not just online, obviously?
No, it's everything. So we have about 11,000 media contacts, and they're all direct contacts, as in the email address of that individual journalist, and they cross everything: regional, metro dailies, weekend newspapers, radio stations, talkback, etc., just everything really. And we're trying to build up bloggers. Bloggers are a little bit different in what they want. Yeah, there's a whole lot of changes happening in the landscape, but by and large we find that traditional media are still running with press releases.
Great. And also, were there any like keywords or anything that you found work really well when you're looking at like a headline? Like someone was saying that you can use
World
the word
first?
new. Yeah.
Yeah, you can use new, world first. Use the name of the town is a really good one. So if you're writing to a Brisbane newspaper or Perth newspaper, use the word Perth. That's a really important one. In terms of the other keywords, it's likely, it's the same as the challenge that we face when we write any direct marketing piece or anything, is getting that headline, getting that subject line right is very tricky, and keeping the words to the minimum, but making it so that they just have to open it. You have to really know what they're after. Often it's so what would it be? I mean, for instance, if it's a shock, shocking story, it could be a little bit easier. So some development, I can't think of something off the top of my head, but I'm sure if I picked up the newspaper I could find something. Looking at newspapers is one of the best ways to learn about them. Yeah, just looking at them and saying, okay, that's how what the journalist is saying. So, oh, there's one here. This is a good one. This is the headline on the front of the Sydney Morning Herald. Climate, world on path to disaster. Right. So, I mean, that they've obviously thought that was a good headline. This one's a little bit sort of a real pro drops in at Manly. I guess that's just an example of somebody using. Yeah, these headlines aren't very good in terms of press releases. They're way too clever for press releases. But if you name another keyword that can work is a celebrity name can work. And if you do have a celebrity, it is best not to hide them at the bottom of the press release. If you're going to have them at all, then mention them up high or in the subject line. I hope that helped.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for that, Layla. Well, I think that's the end of our questions, and I think that probably comes up to the end of the webinar as well. So again, as Layla was saying, not-for-profits can access a 50% discount off Newsmaker during the lead up to Giving Tuesday. So if you haven't already checked out Newsmaker, please do, newsmaker.com.au. And also, if you haven't already registered your initiative for Giving Tuesday, please make sure you head over to the Giving Tuesday website at givingtuesday.org.au, and also check out the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/givingtuesdayaus for Australia. So thanks again for tuning in, and thank you very much, Layla, for your time. And we'll have this...
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Great. And we'll have this webinar recorded and the slides available for anyone who's interested. So thanks again, and thanks for joining us.